Hello, everybody, and welcome to Speak Out, the OutWrite podcast. I'm your host, JQ. You can use any pronouns for me.
I'm Emma. I use they, she, he pronouns.
And today we are talking about transgender history, and I am so happy about it because I'm a history major. Emma makes fun of me for being an econ major, but I'm actually also a history major, so
Okay.
shut up. Anyway, I can talk about the Chevalier d'Eon because she's really fun.
Yeah.
And French.
And French.
Yeah. Well, everyone in my friend group makes fun of the French.
That's because it's funny.
It is very funny. But also, I'm now going to talk about Okay. Let's do the starting caveat when we're talking about historical figures from, the transgender perspective. Yes. Because identity and, particularly as it pertains to sexuality, but also, a transgender specific identity is, at the very least, an early 20th century construction. And so it's very difficult when we're talking about historical figures to actually be like, yeah, they were trans. It's very easy to slip into anachronism because people's understandings of gender anachronism is when something isn't of the right time period.
I've heard the word before.
It's when something isn't of the right time period.
Okay. Yes, definitely. Especially in this sense. It's just like what the post said about self-determination. How can you even... Are you still something even if there isn't language for you to describe it?
Which I hold you are, because Sapir-Whorf is the worst hypothesis in the world.
There's no
you have to look up anachronism, but I can casually cite the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
I am a communications major. Of course I know the Sapir-Whorf fucking hypothesis.
Okay, you're not a fucking linguists major,
I had to take Ling 1.
Okay, I took it just for fun, and I already knew, half of it, so I was like,
yeah.
It was fun.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
But, that one's it's definitely wrong. There's definitely, something in between, you know?
Yeah. So,
anyways.
Fuck those guys.
Fuck those guys. Not trans. That's the official designation of shame on the Speak Out podcast.
Not cis.
Cis stamp.
Yeah. No.
Okay, talk about your problematic fave.
Okay, I'm gonna talk about my problematic fave.
Okay.
So the Chevalier d'Eon was, primarily a spy for King Louis XV, who's not the one who really sucks, but he's not, the greatest.
Which one's the one that really sucks?
16. He actually was... Okay,
he's
Louis
the one that killed all his wives, or what?
No, that's Henry VIII of
Who are we
Britain.
talking about?
We're talking about Louis XV of France.
Oh, okay, cool. Which one's the one with the French Revolution?
Louis XVI.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Great.
I'm a little bit of a Louis XVI defender because he was bad at his job, but compared to some other kings, he was not extraordinarily bad.
Okay.
Yeah, he could have been more dickish, but
could have been worse.
Fuck the monarchy, so I think they were still in the right to depose him.
For sure.
But the Chevalier d'Eon didn't have to deal with any of that, because I'm going to be using she, her pronouns for reasons that will become clear in a bit. She mostly served under Louis XV, who is the guy who came right after the Sun King, and had to deal with not being the Sun King.
Damn. L.
I mean, it was kind of an L. You get that a lot in history.
Else? Or coming after
no, when there's
you?
Yeah, when there's one king and he centralizes everything around him because he's really good at the job and he can handle all this shit, and then the next guy comes along and he's less good at it and everything kind of starts falling apart.
Right.
It's a big thing in the Qing dynasty too. Back to the main topic. So she was basically spying on Russia for King Louis XV in his own little private spy ring that was sort of unrelated to the rest of the business of the government. But this means that after she got done spying on Russia and came back to France, she kind of got caught in the middle of these two warring court factions, basically, whose names I won't bother you with. But as a part of this, the Chevalier d'Eon, who at this time was obviously living as a man because, it's the 18th century gang.
It's the 18th century gang.
But as part of this, the Chevalier d'Eon released a bunch of, classified diplomatic correspondence, basically.
Yes.
and got exiled.
Pentagon Papers.
Yeah, basically did the 18th century equivalent of Pentagon Papers.
Nice. I fucking love to do the Pentagon Papers.
But basically, while in exile, Chevalier d'Eon was sent a bunch of letters like, "Can I please come back to France? Can I please come back to France? I don't like not being in France. I'm very French."
So French.
And eventually a compromise was reached where the Chevalier d'Eon would, like, live and present as a woman for the rest of her life. In exchange for not being in exile anymore. And then as part of this, she was like, and also I was definitely assigned female at birth, and I've just been living as a man this whole time.
Oh my god,
secretly. Which is, like, so crazy. Because she was absolutely, like, chilling during the entire back half of her life.
Yeah.
Living publicly as a woman.
She girl boss and she boy boss. And
she girl boss and she gaslit and she gatekept.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I mean, she's got kind of the average 18th century kind of a terrible person problem.
Well,
but you know,
which is what?
Being someone who had the social mores of the 18th century.
Oh.
Yeah.
Not woke.
Not woke.
Believe it or not, they were not very woke in the 18th century.
Yeah.
Europe. Especially 18th century French people, not very woke.
Not very well. Occasionally, you get a woke one or two. There's
a woke one or two. Were they intersectional woke or were they like commies?
What the fuck?
Because like sometimes there's like commies who are like, you know. Well, okay, my sister is very involved in Hey Maddie, you're not listening to this. There's no fucking way she listens to this. But she's like very involved with like leftist organizations and like a lot of the time, well, not a lot of the time, some of the times it'd be like, yeah, economic freedom, and then they'd be like, but what about racism? They'd be like, what about racism? Or just like the bitches who focused on like fucking theory and not praxis.
No, we're definitely more in the racism is bad camp here.
Oh,
you can get 18th century people who think racism is bad.
Okay, super cool.
You cannot really get 18th century people who are down with communism.
Boo!
That's comes like, well, it's not a philosophy that really makes sense before the Industrial Revolution.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the French Revolution is.
Yeah, they talk about. Wait, that would be funny. What if they invent communism before, like, that would be funny.
Okay, well, actually, Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto in 1848, which is crazy early. Especially because he was mostly writing about Eastern Europe, which was less industrialized than Western Europe. Like, the scenario he's describing where there's, like, an industrialized, disaffected proletariat basically did not exist for another 20 or 30 years. But as a result, people are like, wow, he's so prescient and stupid, but also...
This dude was just telling tales.
Yeah. But hey, he wound up being very influential. Later.
Yeah.
Later, yeah.
Later. Go for him. He's dead now, but, you know. Shout out.
But it would be crazy if he wasn't.
What if he wasn't, though? He was out writing books in 1840,
Dude.
And now it's 2023.
But I bet if Marx was still alive, he would be kind of problematic.
Probably, yeah.
Like how old people, like, accidentally wind up being problematic, you know?
Yeah. Wait, anyways, in your notes about this, it says, also, by the way, I'm AFAB, don't fact check this. So you think trans, then? Like,
okay.
Was not assigned female at birth.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Like...
Just so we're clear, totally not assigned female at birth.
True.
Okay, Chevalier d'Eon was a professional liar.
Yeah.
That's what being an aspiring is.
For her.
He was like, she like made up all these bullshit stories later. She was like, oh, and when I was going to Russia to evade the English, I had to dress as a handmaiden.
Oh.
Like, look at the importance of dressing up as a woman and presenting as a woman. Definitely let me do this.
Oh no, it would be so awful if I had to dress as a woman.
That would be terrible.
And then she has the little, like, you know in spy movies where they make the girl dress in, like, the sexy outfit, to, like, be a spy, and then everyone's like, oh my god, you look so good without your cargo pants. I bet that's what she did.
I bet so too. Anyway, do you have something from your notes you want to talk about?
I think in comparing these two cases, I thought it was very interesting to notice things and to compare things.
Which two cases? I don't know
yeah,
what you're
I
talking
know.
about.
Hold on.
Okay.
With like to put them in conversation with each other, sort of like made me think thoughts. No way. So there's the two ones. I mean, I had three. I didn't research Native American Two-Spirit that much, but that's the one. That's the third gender role that gets cited a lot when people talk about it. I guess in America, because we're in America. Yeah.
Our homegrown third gender role.
Yeah, homegrown. And then home oppressed. So not as good. There's Hydras in India, and then there's Muches in South America. Both of those are like third gender roles. Hydras are oftentimes cited as the equivalent to transgender, but I really don't think that's entirely true in the sense that we think of trans, because it's still very much like another third thing. It's like, and then there's also like cultural and religious lore that goes along with that gender identity. So I don't really think that, I think people simplify that so that someone who doesn't understand queer theory and non-binary genders will understand it.
Well, and also there's definitely like a gender role type thing there.
Oh,
where
very
if you're
much
a Hydra,
so, yeah.
you have a set position. Oh my god, I'm so sorry for the background noise.
Can they even hear it?
I can hear it, so I think they can hear
okay.
it.
They're doing stuff over there in a different room.
If you're a Hydra, you have sort of a set like role in society, whereas if in like the US or a culture without a third gender role, if you step outside like the binary gender system, you don't have that kind of cultural sort of pressure or milieu to define like the shape of gender that you're supposed to occupy. Like Rainer's always saying, like you don't have a slate of gender actions to perform repetitively, whereas you do if you're a third gender role. If you're non-binary, the US doesn't have like a great cultural way for you to act non-binary.
Gotcha.
I mean, there are some like presentation type things which wind up being, you know, just as terrible as the rest of
which wind up
American
being,
gender performance assumptions.
Making it a third gender when it's just not. Very true. It's also like a double-edged sword, because then I saw something recently or not recently, a little while ago actually, that was like, how do you present as something that people won't even recognize? And that's where like the whole like gender confusion that a lot of not a lot, but you know, some non-binary people take pride in comes from, because it's like that's the only other option sometimes. Anyways, back to Hydras. But for those of us who might not know what that is, just like third gender role, a lot of the times. Well, I mean, we can talk about the lore first of all. There's where did it go?
I love how you're saying we when everything I know about Hydras is they're like generally people who are assigned male at birth but present in a more like stereotypically feminine way, while occupying a position not identical to that of female gender roles in Indian society. That's pretty much facts. A lot of the times it's I'm not going to compare it to drag, but the role that they're performing is very much a performance, not in the sense that we think of gender as a performance from like a gender theory and queer theory way, but like a performance literally performing on the street, like doing like dancing and performing and for money and stuff, and also a higher tendency towards being engaged in sex work. Tend to live in all Hydra communities led by gurus, unfortunately was compared to the way that like pimps and prostitutes, gurus and Hydras. So it's kind of like a complicated position, and also in the sense of Hydras and Muches, there's there's like recent movements to I want to say just like get them like rights, like break like stigmas and generally have them be thought of like people and not like these sources of mysticism.
especially for Hydras. Also for Mushe's, like, well, let me finish talking about Hydras. The cultural and like religious lore of Hydras was basically that. Here we go. Oh, one of the gods of Hinduism, Lord Rama, who is an avatar. Avatar is like an incarnation of another god, Vishnu. Said when he was like kicked out of some place, men and women wipe your tears and like go away. But a group of people remained because they were neither men nor women, so that places them like Hydras as a gender role in like this kind of like mystical
Hanging out with Vishnu. Yeah.
hanging out. Yeah, exactly. And so then it's also believed that like they can give you like good or bad luck or something like that. So it's just, I don't know, it's very much also engaged in cultural ideals in a non-secular way. Mushes are also like that. It's a third gender role in oh my god.
And Wahadal?
Oaxaca.
Oh, Oaxaca.
And Zapotec culture. These are more similar to like Two Spirit. There was one person who was Mushe said that like literally used the phrase like Two Spirits, so it's more like both feminine and masculine traits. But
which I mean makes some sense. Given,
how do you mean?
I mean, like given geographic proximity.
Oh yeah, well, indeed. Their interesting thing about Mushes is they're actually assigned at birth as Mushe, but then tend to present femininely. So I didn't actually look up if that means that, like, in the sense that we think about sex, that means that they're like intersex, or if there's something I didn't look up the assigned at birth part. But also fun cultural and religious lore about that one is that it's thought that the patron saint of Huchitan was carrying like 3 bags of seeds that were meant to be distributed around the world. There was one female, there was one male, and then Mushes came out of the second one when it like broke open.
Good for them.
Good for them. Yeah, escape that bag, I guess. I don't know, less about religious lore and the kind of mysticism of Hydras. They tend to just kind of they're more similar in a sense to our conception of trans people in that they aren't in this set like role. Yeah, those are the two. And I think it's interesting how looking at these two in comparison with each other and then the way that we think about transness like in the United States and probably in like broader Western society as a whole, where like you said, like the idea of a transgender identity is still something that's being shaped and kind of like in terms of the terminology and the way that the stuff that we know and the ways that we think about it is like a modern idea. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yes, but also with the caveat that gender roles, all of them are changeable, and the development of somewhat of a non-binary like gender presentation role is not really associated in the U.S. at least with a social role, especially because I think there's sort of a concerted effort among the kind of progressive people who would be familiar with like non-binariness to sort of deconstruct cultural like
yeah, true,
social roles related to gender.
attached to gender. I think I had something. I don't know. It's like maybe this is talking about our broader culture, but it's like our perceptions of transness are obviously very like for the most part like secular. Like people assign I've seen people, you know, assign religious meaning to it in the sense that like trans people are like God giving us wheat and not bread, or you know, grapes but not wine and stuff. But that's like, you know, like people it's not like built into the lore of being trans here, whereas like it's very
well, I think part of that is a lot of like deities are either transgender or can be interpreted as transgender. I know there are West African deities that are like we would probably call them transgender women, although of course it's complicated. And like the example I'm more familiar with is the I'm gonna say some really long words here. The Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva.
How do you even keep that in your brain?
Because I had
like I see one word that's like more than 5 syllables, and I just like my eyes
words.
glaze over it.
It's the Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva.
That's still too many.
Which is also who's a Chinese, saying everything wrong. Who's an Indian bodhisattva. A bodhisattva is someone who in Buddhism attains enlightenment, but like doesn't ascend to nirvana. They like hang out back here to help other people achieve nirvana.
Dope.
And so the Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva in Indian Buddhism is male, but in Chinese Buddhism is known as the Guanyin Bodhisattva and is female, and is also very important. And so there are some interpretations that this bodhisattva is like transgender in sort of like a transcultural sense.
Oh, wait, that's so fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
Guanyin Bodhisattva, very important. Kind of like a general, please help us out bodhisattva.
Yeah, true. I think that's cool.
I think that kind of association, like, of deities with being transgender, and also deities, of course, are, like, very culturally important, makes it very easy to associate, like, religiosity and being transgender.
Yeah.
And also, cancelable moment time.
Perfect!
I just feel like in a lot of, religious societies, being a weirdo is a great way to become really invested in religion. Like...
Elaborate.
You know, like, the popular theory that a lot of people who saw, like, visions in, like, medieval Europe were just, like, having epileptic seizures?
That sounds like...
There's, like, a
that
lot...
sounds
Because there's a lot of imagery about, like, single bright lights that are, like, maybe you're having a migraine aura.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Or it's, like, if you're looking for an explanation for this weirdness, and religion is your go-to explanation for, like, the machinations of the universe, then being like, and the reason I'm transgender is also God, is very easy.
Okay, facts. Yeah.
I wanted to talk about real trans people. I'm going to talk about Romain the Prophetess now.
That sounds awesome.
It's going to require me providing you a fuck ton of historical background.
Okay, cool. Which one is this in the notes?
Romain the Prophetess. The one that says...
How do you spell that?
Fuck you. It starts with an
Were
R.
you gonna say the one that says Romain the Prophetess?
Yes.
Because I'll kill you.
Not if I kill you first.
Okay. Good luck.
So, Romain the Prophetess was... Okay.
We're not thinking about Les Miserables anymore. I'm still thinking about Orlando Bloom.
Haitian, not French. Romain the Prophetess.
Okay, cool.
Name is French sounding because of all the horrible atrocities.
Because of the colonialism and slavery.
So Romain the Prophetess was a black plantation owner who led a slave uprising. Black plantation owners were actually pretty common on Haiti in the late 1700s. Okay, well, at the time it was called Saint-Domingue, so I keep wanting to call it that. Santo Domingo, if you're Spanish.
Okay.
Once comes, like, the Dominican Republic. Domingo, Dominican.
Wait, wait, repeat that whole sentence over again.
Oh, sorry. I talk like a freak.
Hey, that's the print!
Yeah. I said whence comes. Whence, like, W-H-E-N-C-E.
Yeah, what does that mean?
From which comes.
Oh, okay, cool. Yes, got it.
So, are you familiar at all with the Haitian Revolution? As something that happened?
I know that it happened, yeah.
Okay, great.
I know that it was, like, cool, right?
Yeah.
Like, we like that it happened.
We now like that it happened.
Well, sure,
at the time, the U.S. was not a big fan.
Well, fucking yeah, of course they weren't. U.S. isn't a big fan of a lot of things that probably end up being good later.
So Romain the Prophetess was a black plantation owner, but once shit started really going down, particularly with regards to, like, the Code Noir, which was a really repressive like, black code that restricted the rights of black people regardless of whether they were slaves or free. Slavery bad, by the way.
No way.
Yeah.
Speak out hot takes of today.
That resulted in basically a bunch of, like, separate mass slave uprisings all around what is now modern Haiti. And one of these was led by Romain Le Prophetess. But it's the bit that I'm actually going to talk about is pronouns are really hard for this one. I'm going to go with they. They presented themselves as sort of a very, like, a feminine religious icon, despite being, like, publicly, like, a pretty well-known man in the community. And they strongly associated themselves with the Virgin Mary, because Haiti at the time was fairly religious, but very religiously syncretic, which is when you take parts of lots of different religions and sort of combine them all into one, like, cohesive thing. And so she
like you can just use all of them. You know,
all of them.
They are dead.
Yeah, they did not speak English.
Shit, yeah. Wait, what language do they speak?
French, probably.
True. And French has got gender everywhere, so...
it's really... I'll talk about being non-binary in French when we're not on the podcast, probably, because it's
also
really
being
complicated.
Non-binary in Spanish.
Yeah.
But there's a movement for that.
There
Different
is.
pronouns, which I think is dope.
And so the way Romain Le Prophetess presented themselves had, like, a very strong religious overtone, particularly as related to, like those transgender West African deities that I mentioned earlier. They referred to themselves as, like, the godchild of the Virgin Mary.
Oh, shit. So, like, Jesus Part 2? Or, like, different?
Like, symbolic.
Oh, godchild, like Godfather, godchild.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so they definitely did not present in, like, a gender normative way and describe themselves using feminine terms. Like, even the name, Romain la Prophetesse, not le prophète, which would be the masculine form. And so definitely there's some sort of, like, gender non-normativity going on there. But it's also, I don't think we have any surprising...
no, there's not really pictures. There's
attributed.
This dope fucking picture.
But, like I said, this was, like, not even, like, a big plantation owner.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, like...
Well...
Like, they probably owned slaves, but it was max, like, a few. A lot of, black, freeholders did own slaves, actually, Toussaint Louverture, who you might be familiar with.
Or not.
Or not. But there wasn't, like... I feel like in the US, because it was so specifically, like, white people owning black people, but in Haiti it was also black people owning black people, which, you know, also wasn't great.
Also not good,
believe it or not. But it was more of a complicated, like, hierarchy.
Like, well, actually that wasn't super complicated. Oh god, what was it called? It was the system in, like, Central America.
Oh, the encomienda system?
Yeah, that one.
See, you're like, okay, actually that was not evidence that you can remember long words.
No, it wasn't. Actually, it was kind of evidence to directly to the contrary. I know the concepts. They're in there.
Oh, and also that religious component to Romain Le Prophetesse was, like, really integral to their, like, maintaining and, like, leading this uprising of slaves, because it had, like, a strong religious component, like, they can't do this shit to us type thing, and I'm allowed to tell you that because the Virgin Mary loves me best.
Oh my god, true. Virgin Mary's favorite boy.
Yes. Her special little prophet.
Yeah, exactly. Wow.
And so I just think that's, like, I think they're a really interesting historical figure, not only for being cool as shit, but also for, like, would Romain Le Prophetesse, like, would it even be appropriate to call them transgender? Or, like, genderqueer? Or, like, I don't know, it's just an example of a historical figure where I think it's really necessary to sit with that ambiguity, because they're really not interpretable outside of it.
I think that's a good way of putting it. Like, just about context. And also, like, I feel like especially distinguishing and also recognizing how expression and identity, like, intertwine.
Yeah.
And how they're separate and, like, you can't untangle them at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because, and honestly, I'm less familiar with this strain of thought in non-Western contexts, but, for a really long time, the model of sexuality, or, like, gender, wasn't identity-based as we would think about it, but behavior-based. Like, this is where you get, and to bring this up 2 centuries, like, all that stuff about people being like, oh, why were bisexual women in lesbian bars or whatever. First of all, dumbass argument.
Sorry! Coldest fucking take in the room.
No, I've seen some rancid-ass takes.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it was like, because sexuality was seen as behavior-based, it was very common to, like, go to a lesbian bar, engage in sexual activity with another woman as a lesbian, and then go back to being, like...
Straight?
Yeah, like, behaving straight, and so it wasn't seen as, like, a conflict. It was, like, sometimes you behave as a lesbian, and sometimes you behave as someone straight.
That's cool. That's very queer theory of them.
Yeah, it's extremely queer theory of them.
That's kind of dope. TBH. Wow.
Okay, do you have more things in your notes? Because I feel like I've monologued about Haiti for long enough.
Not really.
Okay.
We can talk about Kurt Cobain.
No, I don't know.
Well, I could bring up
Gerard Way.
I could bring up Gerard Way. Shit, because being like fucking not a girl now, you should have raised a baby girl. I should have been a better son. That fucking slaps. Mama by My Chemical Romance. Holy shit.
Honestly, I never saw that line as very transgender.
I didn't either until someone pointed it out, and I was like, ooh, I don't know if this is transgender, but it sure fucking hits if it does.
Yeah. Well, I feel like just in the context of the song, I'm not saying Gerard Way is cis. I'm extremely not saying that. I just think that given that it's a song about war, it really feels like you should have raised a baby girls, and I should never...
Listen, I'm not a lyrics listener. I'm a music, like, melody listener.
Okay.
I listen to the sounds and it's awesome. And then I look up the lyrics and I look up, like, the genius interpretation of the lyrics, and even that doesn't make sense to me. Okay. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro?
Genius has a lot of idiots.
Yeah, no,
it's an ironically named website.
Yeah, most of the time it's not very good, but I try to think about the words that they're actually saying, and it leaves nothing happens.
Okay, but Mama by My Chemical Romance is about war, and so I always interpret it like you should have raised a baby girl as like, then I would not have to be in war.
Oh, okay, I see. Yes.
Girl not drafted.
Girl not drafted. Ayo.
Ayo. New band name just dropped.
Girl not drafted.
Girl not drafted.
Yeah.
But draft. I still think Gerard Way pretty not cis.
Yeah, based. I think a lot of
that zeitgeist of non-gender normative emo culture let's say the
punk.
Early to late 2000s. When was My Chemical Romance formed? Late 2001?
Probably
it was late 2001 because Gerard Way saw 9/11 and he was like, I need to form a band. Sorry! I didn't make it happen.
Sorry, I forgot because I just remembered that meme about the dominoes where it was like 9/11 caused 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah. Directly, actually.
But it also caused My Chemical Romance,
Exactly.
So...
Yeah, 2001. You're exactly right. What? Yeah, good job. What are these? I didn't read these. Gerard Way quotes.
Oh.
Way began openly discussing his gender identity struggles online, and this squishmallow was attacking me.
Good.
No, what the fuck? Ask me anything.
Let me come up with other non-cis stuff, Gerard, that I feel like... Yeah, I mean, Gerard Way himself has been like, yeah, I relate very much to femininity and also feel like I embody it in some ways. and also I use he, they pronouns.
Tee.
So there's pretty concrete evidence, I'd
Yes,
say.
well, yeah, I'd
that
say.
Gerard Way is not cis.
I'd sure
But
say.
I'm always like, in my personal opinion, that Gerard Way is not cis.
As a treat to me, Gerard Way is not cis.
Yes.
Well, good for them.
It's because he was very fruity in like 2004.
What happened in 2004?
Oh, that with the like 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge tour, where he had like all the eyeliner and like the longish hair.
Oh, okay,
and he was like kissing Frank Iero a lot.
Oh shit! This is, you know what? Frank Iero and Gerard Way walked so that Boy Genius could run. Because goddamn, I do not listen to that band. It's not my type of music. But shit, if I wouldn't watch them in concert. Yeah, gay people.
Gay people.
To the fucking max, bro. That song, yeah.
Okay, what I wanted... it's time for my cancelable moment, except no one will know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, true! Not Kurt Cobain cancelable
moment. Not Kurt
moment.
Cobain. I'm not going to talk about Kurt Cobain. I really want to talk about the writer known both as William Sharp and Fiona MacLeod.
Okay, true. Pen name?
Yeah, pen name Fiona MacLeod.
Nice.
Which is a really interesting case as well. Okay, I'm going to introduce who he. That's what the scholarship
you have to say
uses.
He question mark every time you every time you use that pronoun.
So William Sharp was an extremely influential writer in the Gaelic revival of the late 19th century. Which was wild because he was making some shit up.
Good for him.
But he was also very influential as, like, a writer sort of reviving interest in Gaelic culture, especially Scottish.
Wait, what is Gaelic culture?
Scottish culture.
Oh, okay.
Scots Gaelic.
Gaelic.
Not
gotcha.
Irish Gaelic.
I was not thinking about the way that it was spelled.
It doesn't help that it sounds almost exactly like Gaelic, which is French. Gaelic, Gallic.
Oh, I fully thought you were pronouncing it Gaelic.
Yeah, I am bad at
Because every time I read that word, I think Gaelic. Yeah. And I don't know if that's right.
I think it's pronounced Gaelic, but I've also heard it both ways, so fuck if I know.
Shit. Fuck phonetics.
Fuck phonetics. So William Sharp was a really well-known and very popular writer under the pen name Fiona MacLeod. But I say pen name, and it was also sort of like alter ego, almost.
Nice.
This is the one that's cancelable because it's an extremely complex and debated topic. Oh. And I'm just going to be like,
no one
transgender?
Else knows, so you get to be the monolith on this podcast right now.
In like 1893-ish, Fiona MacLeod basically like became the public-facing side of William Sharp. Like, all of Sharp's books were published as Fiona MacLeod, so all of MacLeod's books were published as Fiona MacLeod. There was also a lot of correspondence that was, like, written ostensibly by Fiona MacLeod, and also Sharp would get, like, his sister to write it so that it would be in, like, a feminine hand.
Right.
Like, that kind of thing. Like, very determinedly feminine, publicly facing alter ego. And then there's also this, like, complicated, like, it does kind of tie into Scottish, like, almost national mythos, because in a lot of Scottish literature, there's, like, this kind of duality in one person type thing.
Oh?
Like, think Jekyll and Hyde is very typical of this.
Oh, okay.
And so, the kind of experiencing oneself as two parts, one of, like, which are diametrically opposed, is very, typifies the kind of attempt to return to a Gaelic spiritualism that MacLeod was striving for in, like, really a lot of literature. I think her most famous thing is, like, an opera, which is about a Gaelic myth, where there's, like, this vassal fairy king who, like, curses these lovers or something like that. I'm not an opera enjoyer, unfortunately.
I'm not an opera enjoyer either.
I think people who...
Because why the fuck are they talking like that?
Why are they talking like that? And so it's the kind of case where, like, Sharp would regularly write as though McLeod were a part of himself. That
well, if you consider it as the duality within one person, then you could say that she was in him, like, part of himself.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So there's, like, a very complicated sort of, like, duality of identity where both parts seem to be felt, but it's also, like, this was definitely a situation where conducting, like McLeod was basically conducting a social life just entirely over correspondence. Mm-hmm. So in some ways, to me, it feels like, you know, like when you think you might be trans, and so you're like, I'm just gonna try out different pronouns on the internet.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. You go to Starbucks and you give them a different name. Yeah.
And so it's like, there's definitely a lot of ambiguity, but also I'm like, and if Fiona McLeod was alive today, would we be being like, wow, there's so much ambiguity here? Or would we be being like, stop misgendering her?
Yeah, facts.
I don't know. A lot of really good short stories, though, I recommend.
Oh, true.
I mean, very, like, 1890s, depressing,
shit.
Gaelic shit.
Okay.
But, you know. I think they're worth checking out, especially because everything's in the public domain.
Hey, I love the public domain.
Yeah.
I also love hearing about different ways that you can fuck around with binary gender.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like, the whole idea of a gender being also, well, gender is a social role here too, but like gender being a job, or...
Yeah, no, actually that is like a really interesting way to put it, especially in relation to Fiona McLeod, because she was very much this, like, face of a large body of writing, doing the work of, like, publicizing and discussing and forming connections in regards to, like, this sort of writing. And she was doing that femininely, albeit possible. It's very difficult to talk about. I should have written this out more clearly in my notes. But I definitely do think there's an aspect of, like, not even commercialism, but, like, an attempt to reconcile, like, interiority with the external necessity of, like, being a popular writer rather than just a writer.
True.
Oh, and also the classic transgender move of only telling people that your pen name is actually you after you die.
Yeah, based. Who else has done that?
Oh,
me with my secret Tumblr account that will only be revealed after I die.
I mean, I have James Barry here, but that's, like, not even that much, because James Barry was actively like, do not fucking look at my body ever when you're burying me, and then they did anyway, and we're like, oh, he's a woman.
Okay, asshole.
Yeah, fucking dicks. You're the problem,
actually.
Oh my
god, this is just like, I want to write an article about this, but I don't know enough about anthropology. I keep wanting to write articles about things that I don't know enough about. Which is like the whole, like, oh, but when they find your bones in 1,000 years, like, first of all, you're a dumbass. Second of all, they're dead already. The fuck? Like, who cares? Third of all, I think that, like, that's not even true.
Yeah. Third of all, it's actually difficult to impossible to correctly identify the gender of bones.
Because believe it or not,
humans
sex and gender, neither of them are binary.
Well,
no
actually,
way.
Believe
it's almost
it or not,
like there's, like, variations that don't just have to do with sex. Whoa.
Yeah. Believe it or not, women can be tall.
No fucking
and men
way.
can be short.
Believe it or not, people have...
and have wide hips.
Yeah, people have bones, and sometimes those bones are different. God,
actually, this is Wikipedia sourced for Chevalier d'Eon, so, like, grain of salt. But apparently, when her body was being examined after death, the doctor was like, maybe intersex, because, apparently she had, like, largish breast tissue, and it's, like, 10% of the assigned male population is gynecomastia.
Hey.
That's like, bruh. I don't know.
Sure. If that's really what you would like to think.
Yeah.
Go off.
This is why I'm so comfortable being like, yeah, transgender woman, though.
Yeah. That's kind of based. And also, like, context. And, like, looking at, I don't know, like, imposing, well, that's a version of doing it, imposing a not queer lens on a potentially queer person and putting them into a box.
Yeah.
But then, you know, that also goes back to putting our modern understanding and framework of queerness onto someone from a different time and place.
Especially because everyone I've talked about here is, like, old as fuck.
Old as fuck.
Yeah. I feel like maybe I should talk more about people from the 20th century, but,
Well, but it's, like,
no.
historical. Right? It's queer,
Yeah.
it's transgender queer, like, history.
It's historical.
It's historical. That's like the history is the old stuff.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm trying to formulate thoughts.
Okay, true. I'm looking at pictures of Kurt Cobain. I want to see if that Tumblr user was right.
Are you just going to determine this by staring at pictures of Kurt Cobain?
Yep.
I mean...
What were the thoughts you were formulating?
Oh, well, now I've forgotten about them, but
Oh.
It's just something about, like, even in cultures where there isn't, like, a gender role for, or an accepted way to, like, socially transition, people still do it, which is pretty fucking sick.
That is pretty fucking sick.
And also, we don't know, like, 99% of everyone. You know? More than 99% of everyone.
Wait, what do you mean?
I mean, like...
Oh, like there could have been plenty of people just doing that. Yeah.
Like...
And it just wasn't documented.
Basically, the only places that most people in, like, London show up is, like, baptismal registry, if they have a will. And that's it. Like...
So if you're not rich and...
Well, basically everyone Basically everyone got baptized.
Oh, okay. If you
Especially...
were pagan...
When the hell did London expel the Jews?
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, the Jewish people were expelled from... No, I think it was more generally Britain. But, other places in Britain are less reliable for records preservation purposes.
Specifically about what about Jewish people?
Oh, the Jewish people traditionally do not baptize their children.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So, yeah, cool. Maybe there was a bunch of Jewish transgender people.
Actually, I definitely read a good article on one Jewish trans man, but I couldn't find it again. It was from like the 1870s, I want to say, though. Like, it was a good long time ago. It was like a newspaper article that had been translated from the time.
Oh. It was about him being trans?
Yeah, I was like...
Oh, facts.
A new sun just dropped.
Used to not be, I guess.
Yeah.
True.
Sure.
There we go. That's historical. 1870. That was a long time ago.
But yeah, I mean, in some ways it makes me sad that there are so many trans people we don't know about, but in other ways it makes me happy because I don't have to do as much research.
Damn. Yeah, and sorry for your, like, suffering and dysphoria, but, like, also I didn't want to look you up, so...
Yeah, but it's not like knowing their names would have alleviated the suffering and dysphoria.
Well, sure, yes, that's
And it's not like I give a fuck about being forgotten by history. I won't be there for it.
I won't be there.
And so I think it's just important to, you know, live the best life you can and remember that we don't know fucking anything, ever.
Literally still don't know anything.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna misinterpret your bones.
Someone...
Nothing you can do about it.
Tagline for the episode, someone will misinterpret your bones.
Yep. I hope they think that I had a dick. That'd be fun.
That would be pretty fun.
It would be fun.
Oh, wait, one more thing.
Okay.
I feel like there's a common perception that historians, like, erase queerness a lot. And that is basically no longer true.
Hey!
And stop being dicks to people who study history, because that's how you get fewer people studying history.
Ah, true.
And that's how you actually do erase stuff. So please acknowledge that maybe in 2024, a humanities discipline is packed with liberals.
Liberals! The libs! They're taking over! No!
And thank God for it.
No, yeah, definitely.
I've been JQ.
I've been Emma!
You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, the website formerly known as Twitter. You can read our articles at OutWriteNewsmag.org. That's right, spelled WRITE. I've been JQ. That's been Emma. See you later.
You already said that!
Fuck you! Die!
Die!